Last Thursday, I was an auctioneer, along with the talented, lightning-witted actor and artist, Johnny Fluffy Punk, at an event at the wonderful Prince Albert pub. The aim of the auction was to raise money for GARAS, that's Gloucestershire Action for Refugees and Asylum Seekers, a charity which has been helping refugees and asylum seekers in the county for over 2 decades. We raised over £1,600 from a select and generous crowd. One of the GARAS volunteers present was Ian Parker Dodd, a remarkable chap in his 80s, who had a career in medicine, and for many years he lectured at the University of Gloucestershire. Following his wife's death, he revived his early interest in poetry, and he was there selling a book of his poems about war-displaced victims, the ordeals of refugees, and the fraught process of relocation. Between his poetry writing, Parker Dodd has been a teacher to unaccompanied young refugees, and is a can-do fifth Dan, having set up a dojo in the university where, despite his seniority, he still practices. I bought his book and have already read some of his poems, which I intend to feature in a future video. All proceeds from the book are being donated to GARAS. Talking to the poet, I had the opportunity, which I've enjoyed with a number of poets in this project, to ask him which poet he admires. His reply was almost instant: Eavan Boland. Boland is a distinguished Irish poet who was born just 2 years before me and died just 2 years ago. I know, these are not times to squander. This poem stood out, partly on its own merit, of course, but also because it develops the theme of maps, which inspired Helen Mort's poem, the last one I read. Boland's is a far darker perspective, dealing with that horrific period in the 19th century when the English allowed the Irish to starve. Anyone who has travelled through the south and west of Ireland and has visited towns like Skibbereen and learnt its history will know something of the murderous depth of callousness that was meted out to the starving people. Consistent with the Victorian notion that the destitute should be compelled to repay their benefactors with hard labour, the famine roads were built, often needlessly and to no ultimate benefit, simply to satisfy an appetite for seeing suffering of a grudging and morally skewed prosperous class who regarded the poor, and especially the Irish poor, as inferior. Today's poem is That the Science of Cartography is Limited. That the science of cartography is limited, and not simply by the fact that this shading of forest cannot show the fragrance of balsam, the gloom of cypresses, is what I wish to prove. When you and I were first in love, we drove to the borders of Connacht and entered a wood there. Looking down, you said, this was once a famine road. I looked down at ivy and the scutch grass rough cast stone had disappeared into, as you told me in the second winter of their ordeal, in 1847, when the crop had failed twice. Relief committees gave the starving Irish such roads to build. Where they died, there the road ended. And ends still. And when I take down the map of this island, it is never so I can say, here is the masterful, the apt rendering of the spherical as flat, nor the ingenious design which persuades a curve into a plane, but to tell myself again that the line which says woodland and cries hunger, and gives out among sweet pines and cypresses, and finds no horizon, will not be there.